Okay, hello everyone. Once again, welcome to the first affiliated hospital of Harbin Medical University. And today we are going to demonstrate a very complex case of RCA CTO occlusion. However, before we start, Professor Li Yue is going to review the case of last week, which is a very complex, long segment RCA instant restenosis case. Please, Professor Li.
Hello everyone. So today, as we know, is a TAVR day,
Hmm.
and we already prepare a TAVR case in another
Yes.
slide. And according to the request of the audience and Dr. Maisa, I'd like to give a brief review of last week long instant occlusion
Hmm.
case, because in this case, I showed the audience a technique I invented several years ago. I called it ankle knuckle technique. So this is a 55-year-old gentleman and RCA long stent
Yes.
PCI two
Hmm.
years ago. Next. And the first time PCI, the a well-experienced operator failed because of the also the stand could be used as a landmark
Hmm.
to get the antegrade wire
Hmm.
crossing, but too long in stand
Hmm.
occlusion, so the wire often go out of the stand, and especially there is a segment the stand very tauters.
Hmm.
So first time field. And last time we first did the bilateral angiogram. So one important thing is must make sure the proximal cap of the CTO lesion inside or outside the
Hmm.
stent, and the distal cap inside or outside the
Hmm.
stent. Because the patient is a very big guy, so we can see the X-ray exposure not very clear to see the stand,
Hmm.
and there is a set branch at the ostium of the RCA,
Hmm.
at the proximal portion
Hmm.
of the RCA. So firstly, I advance workhorse wire to this
Branch. Yes.
yeah
Hmm.
this branch. This branch first use IVUS to check. We can see really the proximal cap should be a little bit inside the stent.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah. So next, so with the support of the Corsair, very stiff. In most conditions, we need to use very stiff guide wire,
Hmm.
like in this case CP wire,
Hmm.
and the wire uh, finally coming to the stand. But we couldn't make sure from a second view if the stand inside the wire inside stand or go
Hmm.
out of the stand.
Hmm.
But we use IVUS to check the entry point
Yes.
of
Hmm.
the where we can see the entry point is
That's
right.
correct. Hmm.
Okay. So next, certainly we couldn't make sure if the wire inside stand will go out of the stand. So we did IVUS and we found that the wire really go out of the stand.
Hmm.
Yeah. So then go inside to the stand. So this is the main limitation of the common well auscultation technique,
Hmm.
often go out of the stand.
Hmm.
Even we can recognize the CTO lesion may cross the stand.
Hmm.
The prognosis should be not good. Next. So we decide to use the ankle knuckle technique. The ankle knuckle, we also call it Icky technique.
Hmm.
So that means we use OTW balloon to work as microcatheter,
Hmm.
also could provide coaxial ankle
Hmm.
support. And another very important key point is because of the balloon dilation, so the lumen of the balloon should be in the center,
Yes. Hmm.
maybe most condition in the center of the stent. And then we use
Hmm.
knuckle technique. And in most conditions, we use hydrophilic relative stiff wire
Hmm.
because there is already stand outside. We most conditions use pilot 150 or pilot 200. And if the distal end of the CTO inside the stent, we could directly knuckle to the true lumen.
Hmm.
But if the distal cap is outside of the stent. When the knuckle wear come to the distal end of stent, we should exchange microcatheter and use workhorse wear to try to puncture
Yes.
into the distal lumen. So if the wire go to subintimal maze, certainly we could try ADR or retrograde approach next. So for this case, we can see we use 2.0 balloon, OTW balloon, and balloon should not be inflated with very high pressure. In most conditions, we use 8 to 10 atmosphere.
Okay.
So, and use pilot 200 where we can see the knuckle where easily
Goes into
go
the
into the
yes.
stent and cross the lesion.
Mhm.
And next, and certainly, orthogonal view is of great importance
Yes.
to make sure the wire go inside the stent. And sometimes the knuckle wire also could go outside of the stent. Next. And when the wire, knuckle wire go forward, the OTW will go forward with the
Yes.
wire and inflate again, and to provide more backup support to make the wire try to in the middle,
Center, yes.
in the center of
Center
the
of the.
stent,
Mhm.
and then to knuckle.
Mhm.
And certainly, because the second segment and the third segment, the area of the stent is very tortuous, we need orthogonal view to make sure the wire inside the stent. Sometimes, if the wire not in the right direction, tips and tricks is we could pull back a little bit the OTW balloon in the proximal portion to start the knuckle and to make it come into the right direction. So next.
Okay.
And finally, we can see the knuckle wear come to the distal
Distal
cap.
part,
And
yes.
according to the bilateral angiogram, and we know the distal cap should be a little bit inside the distal end of the stent. But because go out of the stent in the left distal bifurcation area still with relative high plaque burden, so we must be careful. So we exchange microcatheter Corsair and go with the knuckle wear, and then we exchange Gaia wear next to the distal lumen. Okay, next. So next, so we check IVUS again, and we find the hole were inside the stent.
Yes.
Okay, so then we use balloon predilation and also some use drug thin balloon inside the whole stent and two stent in the distal bifurcation, the proximal RCA, because in these two areas there is no stent, also with high plaque burden. And finally, let's see the final, Andrew. Oh, quite good.
Yes.
So my suggestion is, so the ankle knuckle technique is a very useful technique for long segment stent occlusion. Sometimes we could also use like CP wear to do knuckle because inside the stent. And we must another tip and tricks different orthogonal view to make sure the wear the right direction, and especially for the relative street instant occlusion. So it's a very
Good technique.
effective method. But for this kind of tortoise stand occlusion, we can see also
Also
suffice,
works,
also
yes.
works. Okay, we already published this technique in Chinese article, Chinese journal. Okay, so
Okay.
this is the case last
Okay.
week. Okay.
Thank you, Professor Li. So, from my understanding, that this anchor knuckle technique has several advantages. I think for one thing is that it increases the success rate of this long segment instant CTO, I mean PCI, because it can reduce the risk of this kind of antegrade wire going outside of the stent thrust. And the second thing is that I think that it can, I mean, uniquely, I mean, dramatically, I mean, shorten the PCI procedure time, because it can, dramatically increase very smoothly, very quickly to push the anti-gravity wire to the distal end of the CTO segment. So I think that this is a very unique, very, good trick for the long segment instant resentinel CTO case. Thank you, Professor Lee.
Okay, let's see today's case.
Okay,
Today's
first
case
case.
also uh, a case we did
1 month ago, actually.
1 month
Yes.
ago. Yeah. So this case, last time we used BAM
Hmm.
technique. That means if the wire couldn't cross to the distal lumen,
Hmm.
but a wire inside the WISO architecture, we could
Hmm.
use 2.0 balloon to inflate at least the half length of the occlusion segment. And another type of the spine subintimal plug modification is
Hmm.
just like our case. Uh, Go on. Next
Okay.
slide.
Hmm.
Okay. Next. Okay. Let's direct see the angel.
Hmm.
Okay, we can see this is the first time angel. We can see the circ. This is the RC long
Okay.
occlusion, two segment
Yes.
occlusion case. And there is atrial septal branch from
Hmm.
the circ to
Hmm.
the distal RC next, but very tortuous, couldn't be
Yes.
used.
Hmm.
Next, and we can see the distal fiberoptic cap should be just at the distal
Bifurcation side.
bifurcation. So
Yes.
this is a relatively difficult
Hmm.
case. We can see several septal branch, but not very good. Next. So this is the RCA, total occlusion with a set branch, very tortuous.
Hmm.
Next, and the first try field case.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
also tried once, but
Hmm.
failed. Next, and this is the first time operation. Next,
Hmm.
the wire go to the subintimal space. Next, this is the final Andrew. And the last time we did is 3D reconstruction of the CTA. We can see
Hmm.
two
Two segments.
segment
Yes. Occlusion.
occlusion
Hmm.
and distal cap, just as the distal bifurcation.
Yes.
Next, and this is the proximal cap.
Hmm.
Next. Okay, next. We already see that. So according to the GST2 score should be 3.
Hmm.
Next. But according to the CT recorder should be 4 because
Yes.
it is a multi segment
Uh-huh.
occlusion
Hmm.
case. Multi occlusion segment means more proximal cap, more distal cap,
Yes.
and more difficult to
Hmm.
cross.
Hmm.
Next. And it has been demonstrated that compared with common JCT score,
Hmm.
CT recorder is more effective to predict the antiquate wire crossing.
Yes. PCI procedure
And
time. Hmm.
this is the last time PCI. We can see this is the RC angel next. Next. Okay. Next. Firstly, we use IVUS to find the ostim of the
Hmm.
RC.
Hmm.
Next. Okay, here we can see.
Hmm.
Okay, next. Sometimes if there is lateral from the
Hmm.
lateral channel,
Hmm.
we also could use, but the
Hmm.
channel very tortuous,
Yes.
not suitable for retrograde
Hmm.
approach PCI next. So we decide to try retrograde approach
Hmm.
next, but the wire was very difficult to cross. But even the KRL microcatheter couldn't cross
Yes.
next.
Hmm.
So we decide to try
From anti-grid.
IVUS-Guided
Hmm.
anti-grid wiring
Hmm.
next. Because RCA is very tortuous, so
Hmm.
we use knuckle technique. We
Yes.
have the knuckle wire
Hmm.
go very tortuous
Hmm.
route.
Because there
So
is
because
some.
RCA very tortuous, we can see,
Yes.
okay, so this is a relatively effective way to cross the tortuous
Long segment.
long
Yes.
segment.
Hmm.
Next, please. Okay, and then we use kissing
Kissing
wire.
wear.
So there should be a kissing wire
Hmm.
under the guidance of the retrograde wire.
Hmm.
Okay, puncture next. And certainly kissing wire need different orthogonal view.
Hmm.
And finally, the wire come into distal lumen next.
Hmm.
But it come to a set branch of the
RCA.
posterolateral
Yes.
branch.
Hmm.
Okay, next. At that time, we should not directly implant stent.
Yes.
We must make sure if the wire go in the true lumen after stent implantation, if the PDA and the PL could be kept patent.
Yes.
Patency. Next.
Mhm.
So we did IVUS. Suddenly we tried to use Satsuki and wiring another wire to the PL.
Yes, PLV.
Next. Next. But IVUS showed the whole length, maybe only a distal
Yes,
short
a little bit.
a little bit in the true lumen,
True
but
lumen, yes.
from distal to the distal bifurcation, all in the subintimal space. So in such condition, if we directly implant stent, may cause all the stent branch collapse,
Yes.
occlusion, and may
Yes.
cause peri-procedural myocardial infarction. So
Yes.
last time we tried spine technique, use an IC balloon and other balloon to inflate. Let's see today's Andrew.
Okay.
And for the spam technique, and in most conditions, about 50% after 1 month to 3 months angio follow-up, we can see the vessel is
Recanalization. Yes.
recanalized. But we're unlucky for this case, occluded again. Okay.
Okay.
So how to do next? So this time I think we must, for this kind of case, we must start retrograde approach. We must, last time the question is where cross, but macrocaster couldn't cross, couldn't cross the septal channel. So certainly we have several methods to try to solve that problem. Let's see what we have done. And suddenly we did angio, and very tortuous each septal channel couldn't be used for retrograde approach. And we can see the septal channel also is patent.
Yes.
So this time we directly choose the septal channel and use a special wire, CN wire, and a new thermal macrocatheter. But after the thin wire come to the distal PDA, we can see still the macrocatheter couldn't cross.
Yes.
Okay, the high track. So the high track, the tip of the high track, well, macrocatheter only 1.2 French. Okay, so okay, we can see the wire already come to the distal PDA. So one tips and tricks, we should try to advance the wire the further the better to increase the backup support.
Yes.
Look like this. But we can see the macrocatheter also with deep seat guiding still couldn't cross. And then what we could do, we have several methods. First is, as we know, COSIA could be sometimes work as a channel dilator.
Yes, channel dilator.
Sometimes
Yes.
we use the COSIA
To
try to
rotate.
cross. Also, the COSIA sometimes couldn't cross. But after we exchange other macrocatheter, it could work. But for this case, we can see after we try to advance the COSIA, the macrocatheter still couldn't cross. So how to do next? Sometimes we could try another method that as we know, the monorail balloon, small profile balloon, the crossability should be better than macrocatheter. And we use 1.0 balloon, try to cross. Certainly we could dilate a little bit, but I think for that small old lady, I decide to inflation, increase risk of perforation. But the 1 point balloon and very gentle and very with patient. And finally, the 1 point balloon could cross a little bit.
Yes, the tortuous septal.
Okay, and then finally, I exchange the carousel
Mhm.
again. And last time the carousel didn't cross. So you can see this time, uh,
Still some resistance.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
still some resistance.
Mhm.
We must be patient.
Mhm.
Okay, finally
Yes.
it crossed. Okay, okay. And then we did distal superselective angiogram. We can see really the distal cap is just as the distal bifurcation. And a hydrophilic wire often slip to the postlateral branch. This is often made because of, I just to test really there is no small hole in the microchannel
Mhm.
from the distal bifurcation to
Mhm.
the distal RCA.
Mhm.
And finally, we use Gaia first.
Okay.
I dislike to use very aggressive
Mhm.
wear.
For retrograde.
Okay, and the wear go inside the architecture
Mhm.
and advance retrograde microcatheter. Okay, and because we already know very totals of
Mhm.
distal RCA, so I start knuckle again, this
Mhm.
time retrogradely. So no matter antegrade knuckle or retrograde knuckle, we must combine with ADR or RDR
Yes.
technique.
Mhm.
So for the ADR should be like last time we use casing wear,
Mhm.
but this time retrograde approach we should use uh, Godzilla
Mhm.
assist
Mhm.
reverse cut.
Mhm.
Sometimes we call it
Mhm.
AGT.
Mhm.
Okay, AGT technique. We can see
So.
the retrograde knuckle
Mhm.
wear.
So, excuse me, Professor Lee, what's a retrograde knuckle wear you're working with this one?
So in most conditions, I like to, for that case, because no severe calcification,
Uh-huh.
and we prefer to use relative soft wear.
Okay.
This time, use the XDA
Mhm.
to make the loop
Mhm.
relative small. If you
Mhm.
use pilot 200 or 150, the knuckle loop should be large and cause large subintimal space.
Mhm.
And then manipulate the antegrade wear into the occluded segment to make the antegrade and retrograde wear crossing,
Mhm.
and then advance Godzilla.
Mhm.
One tips and tricks is when we try to advance Godzilla, we should use 2.0 balloon to assist
Yes.
inflation.
Mhm.
Push a little bit, deflation, the Godzilla will go forward
Mhm.
directly. Very important, especially in the relative curve segment.
Mhm.
Or directly push the Godzilla sometimes in the curve segment may cause severe
Damage.
injury
Yes.
of the
Mhm.
artery, so we
Mhm.
must be very careful. And finally, here go a little bit further, and but the retrograde microcatheter advance very difficult,
Mhm.
also with deep seat guiding. Another tips and tricks is use the reverse cut balloon
Mhm.
to anchor the retrograde wire, and then we could advance the retrograde
Where?
microcatheter
Okay.
further.
Okay. Okay.
And then easily pilot 200 wire was could be advanced to the
Anti-grade.
Godzilla.
Godzilla. Okay.
Okay, we can
Mhm.
see go to
Yes.
the Godzilla
Mhm.
and then use the balloon to anchor the Godzilla, the retrograde
The
wire,
where? Yes.
and we can see the microcatheter could
Goes into it.
easily advance to the Godzilla.
Okay.
Another tips and tricks. Sometimes when we release the wire,
Mhm.
the retrograde microcatheter may go back
Okay.
automatically.
Mhm.
How to prevent?
Mhm.
We could immediately advance the antegrade balloon,
Mhm.
look like this, and inflate to anchor the retrograde microcatheter.
Microcatheter.
Yeah, to
Okay.
keep it stable.
Stable. Okay. Yes.
Okay, and then we exchange RG3.
Mhm.
We already exchange RG3 and use this balloon to dilate
Mhm.
and do IVUS.
Okay.
Let's see the IVUS. Okay.
Mhm. Okay. Let's see the IVUS run, and we can see that from the distal part of RCA, and we can see that for now that everything is in the true lumen. However, we know that the retrograde wear in the mid distal part of RCA will make some
Doctor.
knuckle technique. So we can see that the mid distal part of RCA, there is relative the segment within the subintimal space. However, the distal part is in the true lumen. and we pull back a little bit to see the proximal part of RCA. So we can see it goes into the gazilla. So I think that the distal part is all in the true lumen, and I think that this is a relatively potential landing zone for the distal part. So this is what we see from the IVUS-1 after we make the retrograde recanalization, externalization of the wire.
So certainly, at that time, the retrograde were already come to the antegrade guiding. We
Mm-hmm.
could try rendezvous technique,
Yes.
antegrade wire in the retrograde microcatheter.
Mm-hmm.
But why I use RG3?
Mm-hmm.
Because to keep the whole system stable, I use okay, Sasuke and another workhorse
Workhorse wire.
wire,
Mm-hmm.
and tips and tricks is put the wire to the distal PDA and pull back
Okay.
into the PL
Okay.
branch. Okay, and finally, the workhorse wire should be already in the
In the
posterior
yes,
lateral
distal
branch.
PLV branch. Yes.
And then we use
Extension.
extension
Mm-hmm.
wire to exchange
Mm-hmm.
Sasuke.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay, let's.
Okay, so I think that this is a relatively very good demonstration because we reviewed the two cases of, previous attempt. One is from the last week, and this one is from the last month. And we can see that both of these cases are successfully, worked. We can see that this case have several, predictors of anti-grid failure because we can see we tried 2 times from anti-grid, and however both, uh, didn't success in the stenting because this is a relatively very long, tortuous, blunt tip CTO. And we can see there are 2 long CTO, segments in the RCA. And also there is a very long segment of subintimal space from the previous attempt. And also, I think one difficulty for this case is that the distal fibrous cap is very near to the distal, bifurcation site. So makes it very difficult to
好，
maintain all the
别
important
动呀
set branches.
，stop。
However, the contralateral, collateral flow from the septal, it's relatively not in good condition, and we tried the retrograde wire penetration last time. However, the microcatheter failed to pass. And this time we also tried the retrograde wire. It also, ended with some tortures
New
and
to
also
Bloom.
some resistance in the
New
passing
to
through
Bloom.
of the microcatheter. And Professor Lee used a relatively very small balloon to slide through the tortuous septals to help the, folding of the microcatheter to pass through the tortuous very small diameters, septal collateral flow. This is very important trick because, in the previous attempt from the retrograde, we can only see that the microcatheter cannot pass. It's a, I mean, very strong incidence for the retrograde failure. And now that we have finished the externalization with the RG3 wire, which makes the whole system very stable, and also we do not take the risk of losing the wire from the RCA. And now there is a wire from the anti-grid, a workhorse wire into the PLV branch. And now we are
可惜，
using the small balloon, 2.0 balloon to make the,
好，
plug modification. So this will increase, the patency, the risk,
停，
avoid the risk of losing very important cell branches in the RCA
啊
to increase the prognosis of the patient.
，infection，
Actually, we do not worry too much about
停
this relatively long segment of subintimal space in this RCA because
，infection，
we can see that RCA is relatively unique
好
compared to the arteries in the left coronary artery because there is
，infection，
not so much very important set branches in the mid part and also the proximal part of RCA. So the whole idea is to maintain the
advanced observable wear
Yes, observer suture.
stabilization
Hmm.
technique.
So I think the demonstration of
Okay,
today
let's see
is
the IVUS.
okay.
Okay,
Let's check
after
IVUS
all.
again.
Okay.
Okay, this is in the PDA branch.
Okay. Okay.
So after casing balloon technique, let's check again for the IVUS run. Okay, once again, we can see that the distal part is in the true lumen of the PDA branch. And here we can see some plaque burden, and where in the PRV branch is drawn into the main vessel. And
Okay.
here, yes, we comes
Okay.
into the subintimal
Okay.
space.
We can.
Okay.
I think we can start here.
Okay.
So I think in the carina area, the two wear should be in same
Yes.
in same lumen,
Yes. So here we can see that it's in the same place.
right?
Yes. Yes. They are in the same lumen. Here,
Okay.
it's drawn into the
So
main vessel.
I was again for the Pierre. So how to choose the standing strategy?
So far that we haven't finished the full, I mean, plug modifications for the proximal and mid part of RCA. So my thought is that maybe currently there is not enough perfusion for the distal part of RCA. So maybe currently measurements for the lumen diameter might not be, I mean, accurate. So maybe we do some plug modification for the proximal mid part of RCA. And after some some vasodilator, I mean, medication, we check again for the vessel size. Because from, I mean,
Yeah,
retrograde angiography, we see that the vessel size doesn't seem to be so small.
I
Okay,
was
okay,
okay
let's check again. Okay, putting back.
in the true lumen.
Yes,
Okay.
I think that's good. Yes, I think that's good information that we are in the true lumen 100%. And also the lumen
Here
diameter,
some lesion here.
yes, some potential hematoma on the 12, I mean, 3 o'clock direction.
So one stand or two stand.
I think that I prefer one stand strategy. But I need to check again, like I said, after the proximal part modification. Currently, it's hard to decide which one, I mean, is relatively the dominant vessel of these two branches. So can I stop? Okay.
Okay.
hmm Let me check again the plaque burden at the POC area.
Certainly, I think we need geo-balloon technique.
Yes.
But for the first stand, from post-lateral branch to the distal RC or
Okay.
from the
Okay.
PDA,
Yes.
any suggestion you are planning?
Uh, Based on the current IVUS image, I think that stand from the PRV branch should be better because the plaque burden
Okay.
at the ostium of the PRV branch is relatively high. If we perform the Jillian balloon in the PRV branch, we take high risk of losing it. And also, currently, it seems that the vessel diameter of the PDA branch is relatively smaller compared to PRV branch. So maybe, I mean, one stand provisional stenting from the PRV branch to the main
Okay.
vessel is a potential, I mean,
What's the
strategy.
size?
Currently, it's a 225. I mean,
Two
for
to
now,
five.
yes. For now, 225 seems to be, I mean,
Okay, two
mm-hmm.
to five.
225, let me see the lens.
24.
Let me check. 24. Okay, yes, 24 can goes already, yes, join into the main vessel. 24 is fine.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and 1.5 balloon, please.
Mm-hmm.
24.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. After putting the first stent, we may recheck.
So certainly there are several methods for the gel balloon technique. So simultaneously inflation or just keep it inside the
Mm-hmm.
side branch.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody also use the Corsair to do the side branch protection.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 1.5 bloom, please.
So I think that this is a very good demonstration that this time we perform the retrograde approach, to perform the recanalization of RCA. And also we maintain at least two very big side branches of RCA. Because last time that we make casing wire, however, we found that the wire in the PLV branch might be in the subintimal space, which is not, favor for the prognosis of this patient.
Okay, I think
Mm-hmm.
we made a small mistake.
Uh-huh.
We
Okay.
should put back the CN wire, the RD3 wire first.
Okay.
We couldn't gel the RD3 wire.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay. So if we use a stent inside the PD, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
if
Yes.
we
It's from retrograde.
okay, give me a fan cross microcatheter, please.
So we exchange the anti-grade
Okay,
wire first.
okay. Give me a fan cross.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Two balloon, please.
After the first stand, I think we need, a full pullback from the first stand to the proximal part of RCA to check the proximal part of the whole segment.
So, during the retrograde
Mm-hmm.
approach, especially complex CTO PCI, we must keep the mental clear.
Mm-hmm.
So, pay attention to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, give me RG3. No, no, no. Fan cross, please.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, another small tips and tricks I could introduce to the audience is sometimes if we decide to omit some difficult to make the wire into the balloon or the
Mm-hmm.
microcatheter, we could use just the plug of the
Mm-hmm.
syringe.
Mm-hmm.
And inside here, we can
Okay.
see directly.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Very
okay,
easily.
very
Yes.
easily.
It goes into the
Yeah,
microcatheter.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
That's one good trick, I think.
So this is no, no.
Mm-hmm. Retrograde wire.
Give me another workhorse wire,
Mm-hmm.
please. What's the wire,
And
please?
also, FYI, we are in the, brand new, branch of our
Okay.
hospital, which located in the Qunli, district of Harbin. And later we are going to
Here
make a
we
demonstration.
should be a little bit careful.
Mm-hmm.
We should avoid the two microcatheter face to face
Mm-hmm.
too aggressively. Sometimes may cause
The damage of
yeah
the
the
tape,
damage
yes. Mm-hmm.
and maybe could be not disconnected,
Mm-hmm.
cause a complication.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So at that time, I think I should withdraw the RG3.
RGC, yes.
Okay. Withdraw the RG3. Okay. Must
And
be
also, we can see that
gentle.
maintain the position of the microcatheter, no matter
Yeah.
it's antegrade or retrograde, in
Yeah.
the septal collateral is of key importance in protection these very fragile, tortuous collateral flows, because this kind of, externalization wire could perform a cutting, function or this kind of a phenomenon
Okay.
if without the
Here,
protection
I
of
think
microcatheter.
should first withdraw the retrograde microcatheter and
Mm-hmm.
do angio to check if there is
And yes.
injury of the septal channel. And at that time, I think I could withdraw the floating wire. Withdraw the floating wire. Okay. to make sure no thrombus inside. Okay, everything
Okay.
is okay. Okay.
The pressure is good too.
Uh, we see. Test a little bit.
Okay.
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 Are you, So sometimes, if it is injured, we could advance the retrograde microcatheter. Angel, please. Oh, I think everything is okay. So,
So maybe one more shot from the, cranial angle.
okay, are you cardio, please?
Okay.
But certainly
Because
it doesn't matter.
yes.
So in most conditions, the septal channel injury is benign.
Yes. Okay. I think it's
I
fine.
think
Yes.
everything is fine.
Yes.
Okay, so cranial, please. Okay. Okay. So advance a little bit to the fan cross. Okay. And withdraw the RG3 this time. Okay. Okay, work crossfire, please. Yeah. Give me the stand and the 1.5 blow.
So I think that today's demonstration is a good summary. For the previous cases, one thing is that we reviewed the case from last week to see the very good, fantastic final, results of the RCA long segment instant restenosis. With the combined treatment of drug-eluting balloon and at least two stents to cover the distal and proximal edge of this, old stent to cover these high plaque burden areas, and the instant result is very good. And also we reviewed the case from last month, which we performed the SPAM for this long tortuous two-segment CTO case. And from retrograde approach, we successfully recanalized this long CTO segment in maintaining these two very important distal bifurcations. And now we can see that we have changed the wire into the anti-grid workhorse wire. And we are about to plant into the first stent to cover from the PLV branch into the main vessel. I think that the demonstration for today has a good, the demonstration of how in a very high volume CTO procedure, surgeon to switch the strategies very quick and very, according to the detailed situation of this patient, to switch the strategies to make the recanalization of this complex long segment CTO case.
So sometimes we choose the hybrid strategy. We call it rapid switch. Rapid switch.
Rapid
But in
switch,
my
yes.
opinion, should be proper time
hmm
switch.
Okay.
Not very rapid,
hmm
just the right time. So what we should pay attention to not just the recanalization,
hmm
but the quality.
Yes.
Try to avoid long segment subintimal stent implantation and try to avoid that branch loss.
I think that the previous procedures also make sense because we can see we didn't make very aggressive, very, how to say that, very strong push from the retrograde from the previous PCI procedure because there is high resistance. Maybe it's a potential another collateral channel, different from, today's, channel, a pathway, Or another thing is that we try to avoid to make any damage from the very fragile tortuosity septal collaterals. And this time we can see that Professor Li using a very small, very smooth 1.0 balloon without any dilation to slide through these tortuous septal collateral channels to help the microcatheter to pass through.
How about here?
I think it's fine. Maybe we make a test from the retrograde, angio to see the distal landing zone.
Okay.
Hmm. By the IVUS, it is
Test a little
okay.
bit. Okay,
Hmm.
Andrew.
Let me
Okay.
check the IVUS run to see how much is in the main vessel. From the IVUS, it's 10 millimeter in the main vessel. So I think that this might be, proper location.
Okay.
10 millimeter in the main vessel.
Okay. So 1.5 inflation, 8. So inflate 1.5 balloon first, then
Okay.
inflate the stent,
Hmm.
2,
So we can see Professor Lee
4,
is performing an
6,
maybe similar to SKB technique. So we are
8,
opening the drilled 1.5 millimeter balloon in the side branch
9,
first to avoid the carina shift from the main vessel from the
10.
stenting, and then we are deploying the stent from the PLV branch to the main vessel.
Deflation. Okay, deflation.
I think this procedure can
Okay.
help into the avoid the very aggressive carina shift into the bifurcation. And also another thing is that promise to
Deflation.
the opening of the stent in the
10,
main vessel.
12. Okay, done. Okay, inflation. 14. Done. Okay. Let's withdraw a little bit. Okay.
Okay, we have put into the first stent. I think that we have finished the 90% of this procedure. We make successful recanalization, and also the first stent has been implanted into the distal RCA.
We do Andrew?
Yes, maybe. I think that it is safe to perform
Okay.
antegrade angio.
Okay.
We need to check the pressure to
Here,
avoid thrombus
deflation.
formation.
Deflation. 14. 16. Okay, done. Okay.
And also, we have a very complex bicuspid aortic valve stenosis in another cast room. Later, we are going to check that case. And Professor, I think that we have something like 3 minutes for this case. So maybe you
I
would
think
like to make a
we'd like
summary.
to
Hmm.
uh, test a little bit. Yeah. So okay, test a
Hmm.
little bit.
Okay,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
already, yes, patent.
Okay.
We can.
Enough. Stop.
Yes, okay.
So
Hmm.
really today the firstly we review last week case
Hmm.
and we introduce the technique I wanted. I call it ankle knuckle technique,
Hmm.
a very useful technique for long instant occlusion.
Hmm.
Certainly, somebody suggests to use a cross boss,
Hmm.
but the cross boss, I think, need more strong backup
Yes.
support,
Hmm.
and especially for the like in last week case, very tortuous instant
Yes.
occlusion, not suitable.
Hmm.
Yeah, so also very expensive.
Yes, and dangerous
Yeah,
relatively.
so I do think for the ankle knuckle technique is a very good choice for the long
Hmm.
instant occlusion.
Hmm.
And tips and tricks is we suggest to use two oblong,
Hmm.
inflate about 8
Hmm.
atmosphere.
Hmm.
And we with very high pressure may
Hmm.
us relatively difficult to advance the wear, the knuckle wear.
Hmm.
But what we should do first to first use stiff wear to make the wear into the right direction,
Entry point,
into
yes.
the stand,
Hmm.
into the inside the stand,
Hmm.
the occlusion segment. And For this case, last time we did spam.
Mm-hmm.
So spam technique is a bailout strategy.
Yes.
So the success rate, that means 1 to 3 months during annual follow-up, the canalized rate should be about 50. But
Yes. Mm-hmm.
we're unlucky for this case occurred again.
Yes.
But for this kind of case, retrograde approach is of great importance.
Mm-hmm.
Even the vessel is recanalized,
Mm-hmm.
if we treat again,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we still need retrograde approach
Yes.
because we're maybe still going to the subintimal space.
Mm-hmm.
And for that case, we show the audience how to solve the problem where cross the septal channel, but microcatheter couldn't cross.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, with success.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay,
This is a
let's go
good
on.
demonstration.
So I think
Mm-hmm.
could move on to the other cath lab to see the TAVI operation.
Yes.
Okay,
We know that we have a.
here, do
Mm-hmm.
you think we need to check IVUS again to select the right uh, size of the stent?
Yes, we need to check the proximal and mid part of RCA.